In this video, you will learn what are supports and resistances, how to identify them, how to calculate standard pivot points, how to use pivot points, about other types of pivot points. Supports and resistances represents points where the forces of supply and demand meet. Support is a price level at which demand is thought to be strong enough to prevent a further decline. Resistance is the price level at which selling is thought to be strong enough to prevent the price from rising further. Traders use supports and resistances as areas to look for potential buy and sell signals. The most popular way of establishing supports and resistances is to use previous tops and bottoms, or reaction highs and lows. Supports are all the possible levels below the current market price, and resistances are all the possible levels above the current market price. Let's see how supports and resistances can also change roles. Once the price breaks above a resistance level, the broken resistance level can then turn into a support level. In this way, previous resistances represent potential future support levels. Once the price breaks below a support level, the broken support level can then turn into a resistance. In this way, previous supports represent potential future resistance levels. Let's see how to set possible support and resistance levels using tops and bottoms. First, start by choosing a chart of a specific time frame you wish to trade. Mark the all-time high and all-time low of this time frame with horizontal lines. Then mark all the previous tops and all the previous bottoms between the all-time high and the all-time low. An area with a cluster of supports or resistances around the same level indicates towards a stronger support or resistance zone. Moving averages also provide important support and resistance zones in a trend. After using previous tops and bottoms for supports and resistances, we can add the EMA 20 and the EMA 55 period moving average. Similar to tops and bottoms, mark each average with a horizontal line. Supports are all the outlined levels below the current market price, and resistances are all the outlined levels above the current market price. An area with a cluster of supports or resistances around the same level indicates towards a stronger support or resistance zone. In a trading range, there is only two significant support and resistance levels. Peaks around the top of the range provide an important resistance zone, and troughs around the bottom of the range provide an important support zone. Another technique of finding possible support and resistance levels is through pivot points. The most common pivot point types are the standard pivot, the Denmark pivot, the Fibonacci pivot. Pivot points use the prior high, low, and close price of a higher time frame to determine future support and resistance levels. As pivot points are estimated using previous prices, for intraday charts, we use prior day, high, low, close. For medium-term charts, we use prior week, high, low, close. And for long-term charts, we use the previous monthly data. The standard pivot point is calculated by averaging the prior high, low, and close price of a higher time frame, which then acts as the main support or resistance level. Based on this point, we can then calculate the first support level by multiplying our pivot by 2 and then subtracting from it the previous high. The first resistance can be found by multiplying the pivot by 2 and subtracting the previous low. An additional support level can be found by subtracting the range of the previous period from the main pivot point. An additional resistance can be found by adding the range of the previous period to the main pivot point. Now that we have calculated the pivot points using the higher time frame, we can use them to trade. If the prices find support on the pivot, it implies further strength towards the next resistance levels. Trading below the pivot point suggests weakness towards the first support. which, if broken, implies further weakness towards the next support level. Other popular ways of calculating pivot points are to use the Fibonacci numbers or the Denmark technique. The Fibonacci main pivot point is derived in the same way as the standard pivot points, with the relative supports and resistances being based on the Fibonacci ratios of 0.382 and 0.618. On the other hand, Denmark pivots have a different base of calculation, which is conditional on the relationship between the close and the open.